let's start. Hey there, my name's Kaaramary and welcome back to Kara Style, where I share with you my upcycling journey and low waste lifestyle. And in today's video I'm sharing with you the ultimate guide to starting to make your clothes. Here are all the steps that I've used to learn how to get started making my own clothes. I began this journey in my channel actually, like when I went to college in 2013. I went to study at Parsons in New York City, and in 2015 I learned about sustainable fashion. And sustainability is only available as long as we start changing our habits. It's vital for me to educate about fashion in a state of self-awareness. That process of making your clothes, the process of repairing your clothes is something that becomes holistic and nourishing for our inner well-being and emotions. 1. Learn from YouTubers. These are a few YouTubers that I watched that I learned how to make my patterns, how to sew. I get ideas on how to transform my clothes, and from them, listening to their technical skills and knowledge, I'm able to improve in my own journey of making my clothes. It's all been independent study, así como lo voy a decir. 2. Your fabric choices. When it comes to fabric, it's very important that you start learning about, is it natural fiber, synthetic fiber, is it deadstock? Deadstock fabric is excellent to use. Here in New York we have Fab Scrap. I believe they're expanding to California, and they've definitely expanded to Philadelphia. They are an amazing resource because you can just go to their store and whatever fabric that you shop there is deadstock. It basically means leftover fabrics, or even mood fabrics. Like let's say Marc Jacobs has a collection and they have leftover fabric, they send it to Mood. Yep, so if you shop at Mood Fabrics, you're also probably buying deadstock fabric. Another sustainable way of reusing fabric is your clothes. So if you have old clothes that you want to upcycle and transform, that's a great sustainable option instead of buying new off-the-counter fabric. Like if you can get deadstock, use what you already have in your closet, or even when you do shop, buy organic. If you buy organic or natural fibers, those are biodegradable, meaning it decomposes. It just like dissolves into the ground. To get started sewing, there's 3 top essential materials: a needle, a scissor, and thread. Yeah. As long as you can pick up a needle and thread and know the length of how much thread you're gonna use, that's the best way to get started, because longer than that it starts to get knotted, and that's what you want to avoid. You do need a sewing machine for certain projects. Personally, if they're intermediate and advanced, yes, you can get a sewing machine, but don't buy a new sewing machine. You can buy it from Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, anywhere you feel comfortable buying secondhand. Talk to a friend, maybe their aunt, their mom, their dad have a sewing machine in their basement that they no longer use. Do not invest in a super technical digital sewing machine that is like $300, because at the end of the day, if you are a beginner, all you need to do is a straight stitch. Trust me, like as long as you learn how to press the pedal and get started, feeling comfortable the tension of the machine, and getting your hands to like know how to like even put your tension in the fabric, that's where you want to get started. Don't focus on like buying the latest newest machines with all the features and gadgets. Like it's unnecessary. Even like I updated my sewing machine and I miss my old sewing machine because all I did was a running stitch, and at the end of the day I'm the kind of sewist that that's all I need. So when it comes to your materials, top 3: a scissor, needle, and thread. Sewing is a technique. It is you taking 2 fabrics and attaching them together. Sewing does not mean, like I said previously, like it's just a sewing machine. You can sew by hand sewing, and when you start sewing by hand, you also start to appreciate the practice, and it becomes therapeutic. It's a form of occupational therapy. So if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you're noticing how even in the digital space receiving so much information, by you distancing yourself from whatever is making you feeling like art is therapeutic. So start sewing. Even if you take a pen and in your jacket you write your name, embroider your name, and that's a way to get started. Now when it comes to patterns, you can check out my video here. There are beginner, intermediate, and advanced. You can shop your patterns on Etsy, like Right Side Patterns. You've seen me here in the channel use some of their patterns to create my own clothes. It's awesome because if you're not super technical or mathematical and you're like, I can't even. These are my top 5 digital stores that you can shop from. They're great. They have a variety, and you can, like, yeah, you can create anything, like shirts, a dress. Once you download a pattern, it becomes a vocabulary, it becomes a form of communication. Life is a form of communication. You know, as you start hashtag adulting, you notice at the end of the day it's all about communication. Life revolves all about how, like, we move and share information back and forth. And even our material world is a representation of our visual, conscious and subconscious mind. Fashion is smart. Let me talk about mistakes. Mistake numero uno, my mistakes. I used to not add seam allowance when I started sewing. But that's the great thing about being a beginner. It's also beautiful too, because you make the mistake, you learn from it, you don't repeat it, and then you move on to it, you move on forward, you make another mistake, you move up forward, you make another mistake. For instance, I've made the mistake of pushing fabric through my sewing machine. Don't do that. If your machine does a sound, don't force it. Luckily I was wearing my glasses. The needle broke and it flew into my glasses. We're alive. If the machine does, I should turn off the power, move the handle to move the needle up, check what's going on, and normally it's because it's too thick. So if your machine is doing a sound, it's too thick. Common mistake is the bobbin. If the bobbin is not inserted correctly, your sewing machine is gonna start getting stuck in the dog feed. The dog feed is like, you see the little teeth in the sewing machine? It's gonna keep getting stuck, and that's because the bobbin is not threaded correctly, or you inserted it where it's just loose. That's a very common mistake. Another one is how you thread your machine. If you didn't thread your machine correctly through the loop, then the stitches are not going to be correct. Likewise, it's common but not as common, because if you're using a sewing machine, normally the settings won't affect it as much, especially if you're sewing a polyester or cotton fabric. The tension of your sewing machine and the stitch length, it can be 2 to 2.5 stitches. It'll just sew smoothly. But if you're, let's say, sewing a chiffon, a satin, there are these slippery, more technical fabrics that you do have to switch the length of the stitch and the tension in order to sew it. Likewise, those are fabrics that you want to stabilize. So you want to stabilize with starch spray, or some people also use freezer paper to stabilize it as they sew. So those are small techniques. And a common mistake are also stretchy fabric. Like, I've taken stretchy fabric and just sewn it like cotton. No, like, I learned that stretchy fabric, you sew it differently. But I mean, that's the beauty of, like, making these mistakes as the beginner. Like, my experience comes from that. So all I can recommend for you is just to get started. Start sewing your own clothes and making them con sazón. Sustainability is a lifestyle. It is not something that you can purchase or quickly buy. It is something that you have to develop and grow into in your lifestyle in order to buy less and care more about the decisions we make. Watch sewing YouTubers. 2, use the right fabrics that are sustainable, like Deadstock or reusing clothes that you have. 3, main materials: a sewing machine, a needle, and thread. Ay, pero que yo dije, not a sewing machine. 3, a needle, thread, and scissor. Top 3. 4, patterns. Know where to source your patterns, know where to get them. Personally, I love digital files because you can just print them. They're very cheap and you can just print them and sew and start sewing right away. You don't have to go to a store, especially let's say you don't have a car or you depend on somebody to move around. If you have a printer at home, you can just print it at home, or if you don't have a printer at home, normally just get a hard drive, download the pattern in your hard drive, then go to Staples, and in Staples you can print it there. And lastly, have fun. You will make mistakes, but that's what Cara Style is here for, to help you achieve your style con sazón. When you focus on the system instead of the goal, the system starts to shape in you and creates meaning. And at the end of the day, we're humans. What moves us is the meaning and the symbolism behind everything that we do. Do what best works for you. In this guide, that's why I wanted to keep it very open-ended and short, because at the end of the day, making your own clothes starts with what first fits well for you to get started, and building those habits and implementing those choices that help you build consciousness, calmness, and apply those emotions to that. Everything that I said here in the video is in the description, so you can reference the description to get started, and come back to the channel every Wednesday and Sunday. Wednesdays is vlogs with Cara, and Sundays are sewing tutorials with style, all done in Cara style.